guys, how are you?
Great.
Fantastic. How are you?
I am good. I'm excited to be here on YouTube today. We are going to talk about something very near and dear to our hearts, right, guys?
Yes,
of
most
course.
of our hearts.
Yeah, but 3 out of 4 of our
Well,
hearts.
75%
Okay, I didn't want to
of us.
say it. I didn't want to
Gonna get
say
a
it.
little
calling
teasing
you out,
here, Michelle. You will be called out.
Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. Okay, guys, so we are going to, in just a second, you'll find out what we're talking about. If you haven't heard or seen one of these conversations before, guys, this is a sample of our group conversation product. So in this program, you will hear us have conversations about, oh my gosh, so many different
Everything.
things, from composting to dreams to all sorts of different subjects. And you can get in on that at allearsenglish.com/fast. So we will talk more about it later. But anyway, so the question for today is, what are your favorite podcasts? Let's start with Jessica.
Oh my gosh, so many. I just want to note for people watching that so many of my conversations start with, you know what I heard on a podcast?
Yeah.
Like, guys, if you get into podcasts, it is the perfect icebreaker and conversation continuer in so many instances. So let's see. Mostly what I listen to that I stick to like consistently is comedy podcasts. So How Did This Get Made? Comedians dissect bad movies and make fun of them. Comedy Bang Bang. It's a improv, like a live improv podcast that's super funny. But I go through series as well. There's a podcast network called Wondery, and they produce really quality series. And right now it's kind of like trashy and gossipy, but I listen to this show called Even the Rich, and it's like 4 parts on different like powerful rich families from all over the world.
Oh,
There's like Kim Kardashian, but then there's like the Kennedys. So it's like,
Cool.
it's so much.
wow.
Yeah.
The Kennedys are a fascinating story. Oh, there's a lot of stuff to
Fascinating.
dig up there. Whew.
I mean, my question is, so Jessica, when do you listen to these podcasts? Like, because you're a busy person, so when do you find the time to listen? Because I would like to partake in the podcast listening.
Partake in the podcast. Well, when I'm walking my dogs,
Yeah.
when I'm doing chores, if I'm cleaning or doing dishes or cooking, I'm always listening to podcasts. So, I mean, seeing that I have to walk my dogs tons every day and I have to do all the chores all the time, that's a lot of podcasts.
Lot of listening time.
That's cool. Yeah, because I know you read. You also, I remember you once said you read to fall asleep. Do you ever listen to a podcast to fall asleep, or that's
I
strictly
can't.
reading time?
No, I have to segment my pop culture intake
Yeah.
fairly.
Uh-huh.
Okay, awesome. Lindsay, what about you?
Oh my gosh. So going in the completely opposite direction. I once in a while I like entertainment podcasts, but I listen to podcasts more to learn stuff. This is so nerdy. I actually listen to a podcast hosted by our feed, Libsyn. They have a podcast. It's so nerdy, I know, but I listen
A
to
podcast about podcasts.
Yeah, no, literally, it's bad. It's bad. I know. I'm sorry. I listen to it to keep up on what's going on with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, changes in the software. Ooh, very nerdy things, but I have to, because I have to keep up. It's so
one of us has
important for
to.
us.
I nominate
One
you.
of us has to.
I mean, Lindsay, what about you? Is that like something that, I mean, because that's work related. So is that something that you like, okay, like put into your day, or do you listen to it in the background? Because we just talked last week about how you and I have trouble listening to things while we work.
No, I don't listen while I work at all. I would never be able to pick up on what they're saying.
Yeah.
I do not do that. No, I mean, I have a dog too, so he needs walks a lot.
Gotta get him a
I go out, I go jogging a
Dogs,
lot,
the
like
fiance.
walking to the gym, I only walk, I don't drive. And
Yeah.
sometimes in the car, if we're going hiking, we'll put on a podcast, something like
Oh,
Pod Save
driving,
America,
yeah.
like a politics
everyone loves
podcast, right? But yeah, just traveling from here to there. But yeah, very nerdy choices here. So can't contribute to the entertainment side of things, but I bet Aubrey has a couple
Yeah,
of
what
shows
about you, Aubrey?
that are more interesting.
My taste is very eclectic when it comes to podcasts because I listen to comedy podcasts, I listen to the news, I listen to entertainment podcasts, a lot of true crime, and then
I can see
podcasts in other
Yeah.
languages too. I listen to L'heure du crime in French, which is true crime in French.
Oh, wow.
And then I listen to some Spanish podcasts. So I'm kind of
Fantastic.
all over the gamut there, right?
Do you
But
listen to Spanish learning podcasts, Aubrey, or just podcasts in Spanish?
I try to listen to some podcasts in Spanish, but my
Okay.
language level really isn't quite there yet. Where
Okay,
there's
got
just
it.
so much I'm missing. If I have the transcript, then
Yeah.
then I can really pick up a lot and follow
Cool.
Yeah.
Spanish. Just made for first language Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
But most of the ones I'm really listening to a lot are to learn Spanish more right now.
Got
But
it.
French, I'm
Cool.
listening. Podcasts that are made for French speakers, which is really fun.
That's
But
cool.
my
awesome.
favorite ones are still in English, I think, because sometimes I'll listen to them at like 2 times the speed too. If I like,
Oh,
really
yeah.
just,
Yes.
it's like a
That too.
chipmunk in my ear. But
Do you find that 2x is a little too fat? I go for 1.75x. I can't do 2x. It just makes me spin.
yes,
You-
I'll do 2 time for a little bit, and then I'm like, well, and then I'll go down to 1.5. I
It's
should
too
try
much.
1.75. That's
Try 1.75.
because it can be too much, right? It depends on what
Yeah.
it is. Like How I Built This with Guy Raz, he speaks a little too slowly for me, so I'll listen to that on 2 times. It depends on the speakers, right?
Depends
If
on
they
the
speak really
speaker.
slowly, I'm like, this is driving me crazy. And then there's another one, BBC, The Inquiry. I really love it. And they do like a deep dive on more controversial news topics when you want to know like all the angles. And I love that. And I
Yeah.
listen to that
Fun.
faster too. That was a cool one.
Yeah.
And then probably my favorite of all time is In the Dark, which is a true crime podcast that it's just cool. I have so much respect for investigative journalists that end up doing good. Like they were able
Yeah.
to get a man off death row who had spent 25 years, his whole life
Wow.
on death row. He was falsely imprisoned and they were able to prove that he was innocent and totally
Wow.
framed by the police and get him off. And so that's the kind of time commitment. I'm like, I love getting really invested in a true story, right? And
Yeah.
finding out like,
Mhm.
I love that one. So I recommend that one a lot. But
Okay,
yeah.
so when
Fantastic.
in the world do you listen to a
Yeah.
podcast? I feel like I'm doing like an
I know.
interview on like when people find the time. I mean, do you listen like
Take a
with your
poll.
husband? Like, do you like sit down for a good podcast, or do you like what's the deal?
I like Lindsay when we're traveling, like when we drive up to Idaho, I'll
Okay.
have downloaded because we don't have
Oh, yeah.
service a lot on the way. So instead of listening to music, we'll share headphones and listen to a podcast. Or sometimes we'll listen to some with our kids. There's one called Lore, which is sort
Oh
of
yeah,
about like,
that's
have you heard of Lore?
I know. I
love
know
that
the
one.
guy who makes it. He
Really?
comes to the
It's-
conferences every year.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Wow,
It's really good
cool.
and it's
Yeah,
kid
cool.
friendly and very interesting, sort of about that like folk tales and the whole history
Okay.
behind them.
Fun.
Yeah,
Very
and there's
cool.
another one called Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls, which is all stories about women in history who like made an impact on history. But they're really
Cool.
well done and they're
Fantastic.
really kid friendly. They're interesting for kids, right? So we'll listen to one of those with the kids while we travel
That's
instead of
awesome.
just music, because we don't agree on the same music. My teenage daughters
Oh,
do
no.
not want to listen to the music I want to listen to
Oh, so
usually.
that makes
Right, right. A whole
But
new
I'll
way to
also
teach
listen when I
kids.
clean
That's
or when I
awesome.
run,
Okay.
like any downtime. Instead of music, I usually will choose a podcast, usually.
Yeah.
Podcasts are really such a the best way to learn nowadays, right? Because
Mhm.
everybody is multitasking all the time. And this isn't even
Yeah.
because our podcast is the best way to learn English. It's
haven't
just
told
because
that.
like this matches the modern way of life. Like we're all
Yeah.
trying to get the most out of every minute, right? So like Aubrey, I love diving into stories that maybe you know a little bit about, like about history or politics
Yeah.
or famous people or whatever. And these investigative journalists who are so talented and have
Yes.
finally found an outlet for their like really nerdy obsessions. Like they do the months and months of work, and then you get this like
Yes.
really in-depth,
Package.
succinct story. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Slow Burn. I think is that a New York Times
Oh, I
podcast?
don't
It's
know.
one of those like investigative ones. They did a series on David Duke and like
Oh,
the
yes.
parallels between David Duke and
Yes.
sort of Donald Trump, and
I
how
listened to that one. That was
nobody
good.
knows how they rose to power, but this is how they rose to
Yes.
power. It's so
Interesting.
eye-opening.
Ooh.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Michelle was telling us she doesn't listen to a lot of podcasts, partially because you don't have time. But I wonder if it's also like you haven't found the right one yet, because there are
Mhm.
so many out there,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be interested in every one, right? So look
Totally.
into some different ones, find one you like. But
I've every once in a while I'll start listening to something and I like get excited about it, and then I just
don't have time.
because like when I'm outside, like I'm not walking. I'm walking a child, not a dog. So like I have to he like falls and hurts himself. He just got a bloody elbow today. I'm like very focused.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so like but I really want to, and then I read in bed, so like I have to find the time to, but I know there's so much good content on there. And one of my friends in particular, whenever I talk to her, she's like telling me about all these podcasts I have to listen to that I would love. And Dan, he has like a long commute in the car. He listens to, I don't know if it still exists, but Neil deGrasse Tyson had a podcast, and he likes all that kind of
cool
sciencey things, and so but I would love to really get into something.
I'm curious if you could find time when you're hanging out with Noah, because sometimes I'll be like doing a puzzle with the twins, and I'll have just like one AirPod in with my hair, and I'm like listening to a podcast too, because I can like chat with them and do a puzzle while I'm like multitasking, because I kind of find myself, I get like bored. I realize I'm like, I should be totally entertained hanging out with my children. I'm not, I'm like,
it's okay.
I'm gonna listen to a podcast.
No shoulds, no shoulds. It's okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I will listen.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, this was a lot of fun. We learned a lot about, oh my gosh, you guys, I hope you were writing down all those podcasts.
They can rewind the video.
I'm going to have to go through and listen to these, or you guys can send them to me again, because those sounded interesting. So anyway, guys, again, this is a sample of what it is like in our group conversation program. So we talk about tons of different things. It's really different to listen to a full group than it is to listen to two people. So this is a great practice. And with this, you also get vocabulary and transcript and a lesson, so you can take a quiz. So there is so much to learn from this conversations and coffee program. So anyway, you can go get that at allearsenglish.com/fast. And again, go to the All Ears English Facebook group, because we could talk about this too. Maybe people have other podcast suggestions.
Yes.
Or maybe you want to listen to one of the suggestions you got today and tell us what you think. So anyway, again, go to allearsenglish.com/fast.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.